Sup, boys? Today I want to talk to you a little bit about Dragonflight and give my first impressions on the expansion. I've been playing it now for the past 2 or 3 days, ever since it's been released to the public and it's out of NDA, and I've enjoyed it overall, and I wanted to talk about the things that I liked, the things that I didn't really like, and just in general, where I see the expansion going. Now, of course, all of this is in the alpha. It's not even a beta, so of course many of these things are subject to change, and some of them I hope will be changed, but I think that it's important to kind of give my feedback and talk about the expansion in a more succinct way than I usually do on my stream. So that's what this video is for. Anyway, first thing I want to talk about is dragon riding. Now, dragon riding is I feel like this is like the main thing that like everybody is talking about with the expansion, and I think it's like dragon riding and the evoker, and I think it makes sense, right? Because these are the two of the big things that at least are available to us right now in the alpha. I think dragon riding is nice. I mean, if you are somebody who cares about parsing in WoW, if you are a, like high-end PvPer and you care about like how PvP gear is going to work and be rewarded, I don't think you care that much about dragon riding. I don't think you probably care at all. But the fact is that there's probably a lot of casual people that are going to enjoy this. And the fact is that I like the fact that the dragons can go up to 950% speed, because that just means you can go places faster, which is more fun. I think it's cool. So I think dragon riding is a fun little, mini game that they can add. I would view dragon riding with the same level of importance as something like pet battles. I don't think this is a major, game-changing feature. I do wish that they had like actual real-time races, and I think that's really what's going to give something like dragon riding a lot more of its longevity. After people go through and they do all of the courses, they go through the rings, and that's it. Like, what do you really do after that? And you need to have like meta-level gameplay, something like an area in a Darkmoon Fair that you can do dragon riding with like 10 other people, and whoever gets there first, I don't know, gets a bunch of tickets or something like that. And having real-time dragon riding races is something I think is very important, and I hope Blizzard does this. Going for time trials on a website, who gives a fuck? I think people need to be racing directly against each other in real time. So anyway, I think dragon riding overall looks cool. It's nice. Is it really something? Is the game saved because of dragon riding? I don't really think so, but it looks cool, and that's nice. I think there's a lot of casual players that are happy about that, and I'm happy for them. I think it'll be enjoyable, and the odds are it probably won't be like something that's shitty. And it seems like Blizzard, we're talking a little bit about mounts, right? And so there was a mount achievement for 500 mounts added into the game, and the mount reward was a Yeti that is about 2 shades of brown different from the minion of Grumpus that was added back in Warlords of Draenor. So guess what? A lot of people are not happy about this, and Blizzard responded in less than 24 hours, and they said that, listen, yeah, it's pretty shitty. We agree. We're going to change it. And I think that's great. It was actually so fast that a lot of people, even me, right? I was like, did they put this in the game so they could just know? They knew they were going to change it, but they put it in the game to make people think that, they're actually listening to feedback because they were already going to change it, right? Basically, like, put it in there so they can get, like, an easy dub for, like, listening to the community. I don't know, but I think that it's a good thing either way, and so I hope to see what they replace it with. And in general, I have been very happy with the amount of responsiveness and the amount of feedback that Blizzard has taken into account with the expansion. And I think the expansion itself is the product of a lot of that feedback. I think the truth is that, I compare this with like Path of Exile, and I think one of the big concerns people have with Path of Exile was that whenever you were playing a season of the game, in order to get kind of up to speed, you had to do all of these activities, and it was becoming exhausting for people. So especially for like a more casual player. I think that WoW has had the same problem. I think with WoW, like what's happened a lot is that you've reached max level, and then you've had to progress through a number of these like end-to-game progression systems, whether these are artifact weapons, Azerite gear, or Covenants, Renown, or Shadowlands legendaries. You have to progress through these at some form of a time-gated way, and I think people just get bored of that and tired of it. I think that Dragonflight, the reason why it doesn't have like one of these like really big like expansion changing features is because I think Blizzard has realized that a lot of times these things are, they get iterated on inside of the expansion, and by the time that the expansion's over, they pretty much stop happening, and they get removed, and all of that effort and time and work is just pretty much wasted. And I go back to, like, I think to myself, because really one of the main concerns with Dragonflight, and I think this is valid, but I don't necessarily agree with it, is that there is no real like big feature of the expansion outside of the dragon class and also the dragon class and dragon riding. Those are two of the main things that Blizzard's been talking about, and people are like, well, where's the Torghast? Where's the Shadowlands legendaries? Where's the artifact weapon? Where is the garrisons? Where is the Azerite gear? And I honestly think that it's a good thing that this is not in the game again. Because I think back and I'm like, when did they really start adding in this kind of like expansion defining feature that the expansion is almost built around, like a build around feature? I think that it was very clearly in Warlords of Draenor with the garrison. I think the garrison was added in. This is like the main flagship feature of WoW right now, and so everything in the game is built in the context of the garrison. And I saw that with like getting gear, being able to level up followers to get gear, being able to do the quest lines, doing the legendary stuff. And then going into Legion, obviously, we had the artifact weapon and class order halls, etc., which were very problematic. And we also had legendaries as well, which were also very problematic. So Blizzard's had a very bad history of adding in one of these expansion-defining features, a build-around feature, and then effectively having to build the game around the inadequacies of that feature. I think that's what's happened. And if you go back to Cataclysm, if you go back to Mists of Pandaria or Wrath of the Lich King, and you think about like what did they really add into the game that was like massively like a big change, I think that many of the cases that yes, all of these expansions did have changes, like whether it's RBGs, hard modes in Wrath, or the Legendary Cloak in Mists of Pandaria, you're right, these things did have changes, but there were no massive features that the game was sold as like this is the main defining feature of the expansion, and I think that's a good thing. I feel like in general it's better for Blizzard to pull back and try to improve the fundamentals of their game. And the reason why I think that is that the game effectively has been, you add in all of these different verticals of balancing, right? You have like Covenant, Conduits, Legion Legendaries, tier sets, trinkets, soulbinds, and like you have to balance all of these things across each other and have them work in some degree of uniformity in PvP, Mythic, and Mythic Plus, and raiding, and that's like not even counting like other niche activities. Like there's no fucking way this is going to happen. So I actually think that Blizzard's making the right decision by not just adding in one of these like massive features into the expansion that has obvious flaws. And I also want to talk about the flaws that a lot of these other features in the expansions have had. Garrisons, going into garrisons, there were a lot of concerns with garrisons that they would flood the economy with resources, which is what happened. There were a lot of concerns, especially for myself. I remember I was very concerned that it would just like kind of segment and segregate players into their own garrison, sequester them into their own garrison, and they just sit there all day because you were able to get trade chat in the garrison. I remember whenever trade chat was added into the garrison, I complained about it on the forums, and I was of course downvoted, and I got a bunch of hate for this, but I feel like I was right, is that not having trade chat in the garrison probably would have made it to where people spent more time in the city around other people, which is a positive thing in an MMO, I think, in general. And so the garrison was shipped, like as soon as the announcement of the garrison and as soon as the alpha came out, everybody could see a lot of big problems with the garrison. And Blizzard largely ignored these, and they just pushed it out, and they said, oh, you'll see, it'll be better whenever you play it. It wasn't. And I think that afterwards, people were very frustrated about that for good reason. And then the same thing happened with the Legion Legendaries. They initially said, if you go back to the announcement of Legion, they said that these Legendaries would be targetable. And at the beginning of the expansion and for the first half of the expansion, actually probably the first 75% of the expansion, they were not targetable. And that was a obvious problem that everybody saw was bad, and I think people disliked it heavily. I think people felt the same way about Titan Forging, and they also felt the same way to a certain degree about farming artifact power. All of these were concerns that were brought up during the alpha, beta, and actually during the current game at the time, and they were mostly and largely ignored. And go into BFA, obviously we have Warfronts being an issue, Azerite gear. Ian literally said that they ignored criticism and feedback because they thought the players hadn't seen enough of it to make an accurate decision on if it would be good or not. So he even acknowledges that the feedback there was ignored. And with Shadowlands, of course, we have Covenants, and the problems with Covenants were evident on literally the announcement of the expansion. And so they were a problem for the majority of the expansion. So I think that Blizzard has had a very bad track record with responding to criticism and feedback from these systems, and having a, as I said, build around feature that ends up being handicapped for being able to play the game. It's like this feature does more to prevent you from enjoying the game than it does to enable you to play the game and enjoy the game. So I'm really actually glad they're not doing that. I think that they should focus on smaller systems, smaller things, and just in general build the World of Warcraft rather than just build a feature for a single expansion. I go back and I think to myself, if they had spent half the amount of time designing, like a raid, or designing a bunch of like really high-end, super complex dungeons, they had spent half of that time in the past 5 years developing content that's like the Mage Tower, or content like Dragon Riding, or content like the Darkmoon Faire, and we had all of that content that was usable and playable at this current point in time in the game, would the game be better than it is now? And I think that for most people, that the answer to that would be yes. I think absolutely it is. So focusing on creating a better world experience and trying to move away from actually just trying to build the entire game around the competitive aspects of it. You saw the AoE cap in, I think there was in Shadowlands it was added. Yeah, the AoE cap in Shadowlands. And that was, I've never seen a single other example of like any argument that it was good outside of the MDI. Nobody wanted this, but they added it, and I think it was because of the MDI. All of these like complex and like overly complicated personal loot trading rules. Why is this in the game? Who's asking for this? Who wants this? Nobody. But I think Blizzard has tried to, they've tried to basically like keep these high-end guilds on rails, prevent them from progressing too fast, prevent them from getting too much gear or something like this. And it actually filled me with a lot of hope. It sounds weird to say this, but it filled me with a lot of hope that Ian said that they gave up on doing that in the most recent interview I think that he had with Tally. It might have been either Tally or Mr. GM, but either one, he said like, yeah, we're not going to try to fight them anymore. We just want to make the content, and that's it. And I think that's a good decision. The fact is that trying to continuously do that and, like micromanage the way these people play the game has a ripple effect on the entire player base. And you saw that with the Sepulchre. Of course, the difficulty of the raid in itself was really bad. And that arms race, as Ian called it, was harmful to the entire player base. And that's really what happens, is that the ripple effect of trying to fight these high-end players and high-end guilds turns into a decreased quality of experience for an average player. Things like the Crucible to make tier gear. Why was this delayed by such a large margin? It was clearly to prevent high-end guilds from being able to get tier sets in some sort of a way. I don't understand why. I honestly still don't understand that. And I hope that Blizzard, going into Dragonflight, listens to that kind of feedback, and they stop trying to, like min-max the way that people play the game and artificially extend game time by withholding quality of life features. I think this is a very harmful thing to the game. It creates resentment for the game, which is what I've talked about before, and that's actually worse than not having fun. Because it's like not having fun is at least apathy. Who gives a fuck, right? But resentment, this is like a targeted emotional feel, and that's bad. So I really hope that doesn't happen at all, and I really hope that Blizzard's able to continuously, develop the expansion and just make it better on a fundamental level. I've said multiple times that I think that it'll take 2 or 3 expansions for the game to be good again. I do think that Dragonflight could be the first step in that direction. Now, the expansion hasn't really been out yet. It's never been out yet. We don't really know like what a lot of the features are. We don't know how they're going to balance talent trees. I have no idea. But I think that the philosophy behind Dragonflight is positive, and I think that building a better foundation for the game is much more important than putting a new coat of paint on an old car again. I think this has been happening for the last expansions, and it's really just been a losing battle, and it's been bad every single time. I hope that it's good. I really do, and of course, I'll make videos and talk about all the different stuff and the systems, etc. I mean, they even said they're bringing back group loot, for example, and so like that probably, I'm assuming, means they're going to bring back master loot. And in my opinion, I think there were 2 reasons that they got rid of master loot. Number one is because they probably wanted to save money on GMs, and you can't have any ninja looting tickets if you have personal loot, right? Nobody can ninja. So I think that's one big reason. And then the other reason probably was because they were trying to micromanage and min-max realize how, again, high-end guilds were playing the game. This is just an effort in futility. They will always know life it harder than you expect them to. Don't try to stop it. Make the game for the other fucking 99.999% of players, and I can guarantee you those high-end players will have a better time because they'll have more people playing the game to look up to them for achieving what they're trying to do. So I do think that it's a very big mistake to have done that for so long, and I'm glad that Blizzard's finally acknowledging that and trying to move away from it, but we'll see what happens. I think that it's very important to not let your guard down and to be very outspoken about changes and things that are done in the game that are just decreasing the quality of it or making it take longer for no reason or just in general making you not enjoy the game. So I feel like with this alpha, I think players should be even more outspoken, and also I think that we should do what we did last year. If the game isn't fun, stop playing the game. Stop playing the game. Stop doing something that you're not happy with. And I honestly think that the mass exodus from WoW last year, like the Final Fantasy and also with like the lawsuit, I think both of those two things lit a fire under their ass. I'm going to be totally honest. I think it absolutely fucking did. Because there's probably people, executives over there at, at Activision Blizzard, they see this and they're like, fuck, what are you guys doing over there? Like, why are the people leaving? Why aren't they quitting? Why aren't you listening to your player base? And I guarantee you, whenever the board of executives at Activision Blizzard sees that, they don't really give a fuck about, like, what the philosophy is behind stopping Limit from doing split runs. They don't give a fuck. And so that's a good thing, and I think that everybody who did unsub and did move away from the game actually was extremely instrumental in making Dragonflight in many ways a response to the community feedback. And I hope that continues to be the case, and if it stops being the case, well, you already know what to do. So I really hope it's good. I'm excited, and I think it's going in the right direction, but it is the alpha. It's very hard to say, and I think we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, the Evoker looks fine. I mean, the customizations, there's got to be like some furries or scalies on the fucking art team. Like, they put a lot of effort and focus and detail into these characters. And there's no way that there's only one place that I've seen that level of detail before, and it's DeviantArt. So anyway, I'm glad to see it. I'm excited to see more, and I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens. Anyway, guys, I wanted to make a video and talk about it. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I guess we'll all see it together. I'll see you later. Peace.